Hey, welcome back into Weekend Joe, driven by Munganass St. Louis Acura and Munganass Alton Toyota here on ClaibsOnline.com. We told you that we were going to have him on, and if you are watching this and you see the name Fred Segal, you might be thinking, who the hell is that? But you will know by his Twitter account, Freezing Cold Takes, or Old Takes Exposed on Twitter. He is the man behind that. Fred, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I looked back. You and I have I think first time in contact was 2015. I want to say all the way back then.
2015, it must have been because that's when I started the feed in November 2015. So if it was either probably then or the beginning of 2016.
And it now, it has blown up into now a you have turned a Twitter account into a book, the Freezing Cold Takes, NFL football media's most inaccurate predictions. This is, I mean, look how thick this this book is. That is how much you have to work with, and I'm sure you could probably print about 10 more of these books with the history of bad takes from us in the media.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely could do another NFL book, volume 2, if I wanted to, because I had a lot of stuff that I couldn't put in that book because the publishers would only let me do a certain amount of words for the book. So I had to take a lot of stuff out that I couldn't put into another book if I wanted to. I could do one for like do like 3 or 4 for college football. I mean, when you got that many teams, it's going to be a lot of stuff. And then there could be one on NBA, there could be one on Major League Baseball, of course. Probably in hockey, I couldn't write that because I don't know anything about hockey.
But Pete, you know, the great thing about the popularity of the Old Takes Exposed Twitter account is that, I mean, you have almost 600,000 followers on that account now. That people just they point you in the right direction.
Yeah, somebody didn't. You probably have heard the news. If you know anything about hockey, I don't. Someone signed with the Island. Someone didn't sign with the Islanders and signed with Calgary like 30 minutes ago. And apparently, Islanders really wanted him to sign, or thought that he would sign with them, and it was a big deal. So I got all these people sending it to me, so I retweeted one. I can tell you this: I have no clue about any of these guys. I'll tell you right now who it was.
It was
Nazem Kadri.
I saw a tweet about him earlier in Calgary, so I figured that that's what it was. I wasn't following any of that either, unless it has something to do with the Blues. That's about my extent.
I have 2 hockey guys who I just became friends with based on like talking to them, and if sometimes when I get a hockey one, I'll send it to them. I go, "Is this legit?"
So I mean, the first book, it's all NFL. It's only NFL takes. Was that because you knew you were going to release it right before the season, or do the most bad takes come from the sport from the NFL?
Well, I at first was going to do all sports, but then I decided, well, first of all, I had a hard time picking. I felt like I would be leaving so many out from so many sports. So I decided, let's just focus on one sport. And the NFL is the most popular sport right now, and I'm going to do my first book, and it's got really good. I already had really good content to like at least start the foundation. And so I figured, if I'm going to do a book, and I'm going to try to get myself published and maybe be able to do another one. Well, why not go with the most popular sport? We did it during the NFL season, but I was done with this draft before that, and it could have been released this summer, but they wanted to do it right before the season started.
As you what I like too, you can go in here and you can look, and the only name I went and looked for, because you could see like who's kind of exposed the most, I looked for our buddy Howard Balzer's name in the index. I didn't find it. I have not gone through and looked at and read every single page of the book yet, so I don't know if he's mentioned it here at all. But I'm gonna guess that if you wanted to, you could probably write an entire book just off of Skip Bayless and Colin Cowherd and stuff that they do, right?
Yeah, I probably could, but it's just that's not a fun book. People would think that it would sell because people hate it. I don't think it would. I think people would and they wouldn't like at least like guys like Skip getting more attention to him. So yeah, I didn't want to do that. I mean, I definitely used some of their quotes, but not that many. Like for the book, like I definitely did not want to make it where I was focusing on one person too much in the media.
So as you go through and you start to put this together, and people will go and they can pick it up now. It just actually went on sale August 9th, I believe, is when the
Last
book.
Tuesday.
Yeah, so people can now go wherever you find your books, wherever you buy your books, and get it now. How do you go about building a book? I mean, this isn't this isn't you sitting down and writing out a story. I mean, this is you finding finding bad and a lot of them and grouping them together. So, how do you go about building a book like this?
Well, the finding was my favorite part. That's what I love to do. I love researching. I love finding stuff. That's why this feed. I don't have a passion for cold takes per se. I just love finding stuff, and the feed became big, and I just decided, hey, I'm going to continue finding stuff. So I found the research was fun. It was the sitting and writing part that was much harder. But because I wrote stories, it's not an extension of my feed. I think a lot of people, when they first see or hear that I did a book or was writing a book, they believe, not not unintelligently believed. It could have been a nice assumption, but like that I would have done a book where I just listed takes. But that's not what I did. I took stories. I took specific time periods of a team or a player, and I made the chapter about that specific time period and the sentiments, the underlying sentiments, a lot of them specific, that was popular among the media about those teams or players. And then I wrote a story about the context and all the things that went, how it led up to that point. And for instance, I have a chapter on the Cowboys from '89 to '95, when Jimmy Jones and Jerry Johnson was hired, or Jerry Jones took over the team and hired Jimmy Johnson, and they traded Herschel Walker, and they got Troy Aikman and all that. And there was a lot of criticism levied towards them. I have a chapter on I have a chapter just on the draft where that's really the only chapter that's an extension of my feed, where I just list old draft quotes. Some from Walter Payton, dating back to 1970, from right before the draft or during the draft, like Emmitt Smith, Bruce Smith, Dan Marino, even guys like now, Mahomes, Allen, Lamar Jackson, just that far of a time period. And then there's another one where I talk about, the St. Louis Rams are featured in one of the chapters about
there right now, yeah,
draft grades. And just one example of the ludicrousy of them, because in 1996, the draft grades, the Rams were evaluated to have done a great job drafting it. They got an A, almost across the board, and the Ravens got a C almost across the board. And that was the year the Ravens picked, in the first round, picked John Ogden and Ray Lewis, and the Rams picked Lawrence Phillips, who the Ravens passed on because there was a lot of character issues with Phillips. But the
just
Rams,
a few, yeah.
The Rams picked him, and that was one of the reasons why the Ravens were graded poorly and the Rams were graded high. They also picked Tony Banks, who was a physical marvel, but he turned the ball over way too much. And he turned the ball over way too much in college. And he still got picked in the second round, and they loved him. And they picked Eddie Kinnison, who was pretty good for maybe a year or two on the Rams, had a solid career for the Chiefs after they traded him, but Marvin Harrison was picked right after him, So it was that was like a whole chapter on that issue or stuff. And then there's chapter on the Steelers they wanted to get rid of Bill Cowher, and when Belichick was hired by the Patriots, there was open season on him. Everyone thought that was a terrible hire. So it's that's really the spirit of the book.
And not only did they trade Lawrence Phillips, did they draft Lawrence Phillips, they traded Jerome Betts away because of
Right.
it. Like so.
Yeah. Bettis didn't get along with Rich Brooks. They traded him to the Steelers, and that was also one of the things that was praised. And
Yeah.
you can see a couple quotes about that in that chapter. But looking up each specific chapter was fun. I mean, I would go through. I had a lot of these chapters. I mean, you talk about the chapter about when I talk about the Cowboys chapter from 89 like to 92, and or the 49ers, I have a chapter from Steve Young and Joe Montana era. That predates the internet. So you go to like newspaper archives and watch clips on TV, or watch old games where they talk about it. You got to watch the whole game and listen the whole time. And then and there's some that predate that were the internet was around, but it predated social media. So you go look up the stuff on the internet, and you can look up the newspapers too, because that's where you get a lot of the stuff. But you got to do all that. But there's a lot of just watching stuff for no reason that you won't get anything. So I can watch like 6 games and get like 2 quotes.
And that's, I think, a big thing too. That I think people will look at this, they'll see the freezing cold takes attached to it and just say, okay, I could just go on Twitter and read all of this. No, you actually go and do your research, and you are pulling articles out from the pre-internet days and writing about those things that were written in newspapers when that was all that we had to read was stuff out of the newspapers. And so you are digging deep and finding stuff before people because Twitter makes it too easy. Twitter makes it too easy to just throw out any kind of hot take and see what sticks until they started being held accountable. But back in the day, newspapers, the columnists and reporters would throw out their opinions and ideas, and, people would forget about it maybe a week or 2 later.
Yeah. A perfect example of that is even in that chapter when Art Modell for the Ravens loved Lawrence Phillips. He wanted to draft Lawrence Phillips. He went out to dinner with him and like really had a huge rapport with him. But fortunately for the Ravens, they might have picked him, and I think that they were on that path until they had the 4th pick, until the Cardinals, who were expected to pick John Ogden, picked Simeon Rice with the 3rd pick. So the Ravens just changed and said, well, now we got to pick Ogden because he's guaranteed. So they picked him. But afterwards, Modell, Lawrence Phillips had already missed half the season via suspension, the college season before the draft, because he, took his ex-girlfriend out of an apartment. Ironically, was the head coach now of Nebraska. Scott, his ex-girlfriend was at Scott Frost's apartment. He dragged her out by the hair and dragged her down the stairs. And he was arrested for it, and he got suspended. But Modell said afterwards, he's a great citizen. He would be a great citizen for the city of Baltimore if we would have picked him. But we didn't pick him. But, and a lot of things about him, he was talking about how the girlfriend was betrayed him in some way. And, it wasn't – she has a lot to blame too, Yeah. For getting dragged down the stairs, and that kind of comment would have been just the pushback and the heat an owner would have gotten for that now.
I mean, you see what Deshaun Watson. I mean, the
comment. Deshaun Watson, right. But back then, yes, there were people who wrote columns on it the next day and thought that it wasn't a great thing to say, or just thought that Modell was not, that wasn't a good look at all, but they didn't, it ended pretty quickly. Yeah. And, you don't get that. You didn't get I have a chapter in chapter 2 of this book from, it's from when I was in Miami growing up, when Dan Marino got hurt after playing 10 straight seasons of never getting hurt. He tore his Achilles in the 3rd game of the season in 1993 against the Browns, and Scott Mitchell came in he was the Dolphins' backup. He had 3 great games, and then right after the 3rd great game on the Monday, Greg Cody and Miami Herald wrote, trade Dan Marino, keep Scott Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a huge deal in Miami, just huge. Everyone was going nuts. How can you write that? Whatever. That type of thing would have been said during Scott Mitchell's third game with the Dolphins on like Twitter, and then 5 times in the Monday shows on ESPN would have been discussed if it was now, and we wouldn't bat an eye.
Yeah. The book again, Freezing Cold Takes NFL. You can go and if you go to your Twitter account, Old Takes Exposed, you have the link right there, pinned at the top on how to buy it. It's available via runningpress.com. Also available again, Kindle,
Amazon,
paperback, Amazon, wherever you get your books, it is right there for you. Will be fun reading before the football season starts in just a few weeks. Get your football fix before the season starts. There it is right there. You can go and you can get it now. Fred, I look forward to volumes after volumes of books coming out now that you're in the book game with this college football, NBA, all of that. It's you've done one now. I think you're going to find yourself, people are going to be wanting more of it.
I'd love to do another one. Yeah, I would love, college football would be just like, I would love that one. You could do it. Just give him I could do a chapter on just give him the Heisman.
That and coaching hires that were absolute disasters.
Oh yeah. Well, another great thing for college football would be like reactions after the first 2 games. I have a chapter in here about reactions to player performances in preseason in this new NFL book that I just wrote.
Yeah.
But in college football, it's reaction to teams in like the first 2 games or 3 games. They win a game big, and they're almost, a lot of them are just rendered unbeatable.
I've told this story a few times, and I actually had a redemption story of it here recently. Back in college, playing fantasy football for one of the first times, I traded Amon Green for Amos Zuraway because Amos Zuraway was really good in Madden. And I thought, surely he's going to have a good year for the Steelers. He was terrible. Amon Green went on to like a near MVP season. And at the Super Bowl this year, I had a chance to interview Amon Green, and I apologized to him for trading him.
Like he dares. Like, yeah, he right. I remember him as there. He's a local kid. Pittsburgh kid.
Yeah. I have never won a fantasy league since I made that trade, and I asked for Amon Green to forgive me for trading him away, and he so we'll see if the curse of Amon Green has been lifted on me this year. For
Amon Green was the other running back on that Nebraska team with Phillips.
Yeah, he was.
They brought Phillips back against like my Gators team. I went to University of Florida, huge Gator fan. They destroyed UF in the championship. Phillips had like 3 touchdowns total, ran all over us, and you know he did the job for Osborne.
Yeah.
Tom Osborne.
Think of the book. Think of the college book you could write just off of coaches saying, "I'm not going anywhere," and then
games. Yeah, I don't know if I could still do game. I don't know if I could do gamesmanship as takes or. yeah. Or do they say like, "I'm happy where I am. I'm happy where I am right now. I'm happy where I am."
Right.
They don't say specifically, "I'm not going."
Well, Fred, best of luck with the book as the NFL season is upon us, and I look forward to catching up with you down the road.
Thanks so much.